If you're looking for heroes, don't look to SmackDown next. Mania is in Vegas again, so SmackDown decided to double down on McAfee's Hard 12. So let's start the 10 count with topic number 1. No one's the hero, because after hearing reports that they were already making changes to the Orton versus Rhodes feud after everyone hated Pat McAfee's appearance last week, well, buddy, if that's what a change looked like, I think they forgot how to do that too, because that was just a doubling down on awfulness. It seems like they remembered what the real plot is supposed to be when Jelly Roll tried to tell Rhodes at the top of the show that this is about 20 years of friendship and betrayal, and then they completely ignored that and went back to being the Stooges for the Pat McAfee show. And McAfee spent half of his time talking about CM Punk and selling merch, and then discounted tickets for just WrestleMania Saturday by 25%. So shouldn't he be discounting Night 2 instead? If this match is so awesome and saving wrestling, well, people should be happy to pay full freight and then need the discount for Night 2. But they decided to go with Night 2 is so bad you shouldn't even watch it instead. Wow. Well, out of storyline, is anyone really going to WrestleMania because of that deal? If you were on the fence about going with the cheapest seats of about $200 per night for $400 total, are you really booking that last minute flight and hotel for $150 and then $200 for $350 total? Not with this match in the way that it is going. Rhodes did say what we wanted him to say, from telling McAfee to go back to Ari Emanuel and say thank you daddy, to calling him a play wrestler, and to go home by flat out saying that we want to see Orton and not him. But McAfee did say one thing that we were fine with at this point, that if Orton doesn't walk out as a 15-time champion, you'll never see him again. But that line about Triple H was the worst of all. And then to further keep this feud away from simply Rhodes versus Orton, they had to have Orton lay out Jelly Roll off screen, and it is funny that Jelly Roll is so vulnerable to be dragged out to the ramp, but then to recover enough to be able to grab McAfee for a potential chokeslam. But ending with Orton using the title on Rhodes like Cena last year, and then McAfee taking it home, is a real head-scratcher. I'm sure that the McAfee show watchers seeing that title in the Thunderdome will get them to buy or watch the show now at least, right? Well, maybe if they don't have to watch SmackDown. Topic number 2, no fight zone. I guess telling the truth is more important than trying to win a title, because Reigns powered down from threatening Punk with violence if he merely stepped in the ring to just letting him talk forever, and by the end he just had him stand just a foot away. Truth bombs are not exactly pipe bombs, so while this was really excellent work by both men today, I can't imagine that these speeches and a stare down are going to be things that will garner last-minute ticket sales. So this final salvo is about hate and envy, with Reigns having to have everything handed to him until we work so hard to make the Bloodline story great, and then Punk for having an unmatched connection with the crowd. I'm glad they at least ended with Reigns getting the original point that he's going to fix this mess and make WWE worth every dollar. But then they really just needed to start swinging, so tell me when I'm telling lies. But that wasn't all, because in this no fight zone, because we had Brock Lesnar appearing on his own for just a couple minutes to sign his contract before Obafemi appeared much later in the night to do the same, though at least Femi got to cut a pretty long promo on Heyman, and it was a good one, and yes, we can feel something different this time, and he really just might be the one, because after 25 years, it is time. On top of that, AJ and Becky did not appear in person for the 3rd straight week. Finn Balor didn't say anything as he transforms into the Demon, so Dom didn't get to go to the ring either. And The Vision and IShowSpeed just had a training montage, so there was no interaction with the Usos and LA Knight, so really solid booking there, huh? Topic number 3, Tama Time, but at least the Usos and LA Knight had a match, and almost inexplicably having a warm-up 6-man tag against the MFT, who of course have no business even showing up to Raw, let alone getting a match. And while the outcome was never in doubt, as Knight gave Tonga Loa some blunt force trauma to score the win, it wasn't prompted by a dominating match, but rather due to Tama Tonga showing up very, very late to distract his own team. That came after Tama lost his own match against Jacob Fatu on Friday, though he managed a couple impressive moves, particularly that spinning reverse DDT, before eventually falling to a super kick, pop-up Samoan drop, and a mighty moonsault, which at least led to a post-match beatdown with Drew McIntyre on Fatu, but it is too bad that those very strange handcuffs didn't work better to really wrap up Fatu on the post. But as for Tama, does he cost MFT once and for all in their 8-man tag match against the Wyatt Six to leave the group? Topic number 4, yanking legs for days, because at least Charlotte and Bayley and Lyra keep showing up, and the teams exchange wins on SmackDown and Raw. Yes, it was a tough one for Bayley on SmackDown, though perhaps she earned it by mocking Charlotte at ringside before Charlotte threw her jacket at her, and that was enough of a distraction for Alexa to roll her up from behind. But that was Bayley's second match of the calendar week, where she beat Lash Legend after Lyra twice grabbed Lash's legs to help Bayley pick up a cheap win. But Bayley returned the favor this week's Raw by swiping out Charlotte's leg during an O'Connor roll to give Lyra the opening for a roll-up of her own. So maybe there's something to these two cheating to win now, huh? Well, while we know that Nikki's ankle is in a perilous state, to say the least, Nia and Lash were conspicuous by their absence on both SmackDown and Raw, because it seems like a pretty strange choice to not have either of them involved in some way during or after these two matches to continue to prove their dominance, especially after Lash's loss last week. But if there's any feud that will continue on that final SmackDown, I have the most faith in this one. Topic number 5, Pyro-Hausen, and another man who just keeps showing up on both shows and then disappearing is Danhausen, and he stunningly had his first match in WWE versus Kit Wilson on SmackDown. I thought there was a chance they'd save him for that last open spot on WrestleMania Sunday to make his in-ring debut, but this seemingly ends his chances of having a match there. Though I have to say, an impromptu match could certainly be in the cards, as he's now invoked Cena's name several times, and he's not going to fight Cena, of course, but then perhaps The Miz will interrupt Cena, and then Danhausen will come out to get that match. But in this debut versus Kit Wilson, it was something, and the bridging Northern Lights suplex really stunned me in its crispness. Then the expected shenanigans of course ensued, with the errant pyro going off as an entertaining way to get Wilson in position for, well, a very strange big boot finisher. Is that part of the Danhausen joke too? Because that was the worst finisher in all of WWE. Well, maybe he can't be taking Punk and AJ's finishing move right now, but a good Nighthausen would still work just fine. To the winner of the week, that is Royce Keys, and good for Keys for re-debuting just outside of his hometown, but man, that was a long wait to get him back on the screen following the Royal Rumble. They certainly laid it on thick about him making it out of a rough situation, but shout out to his grandma for raising him well. So let's define him by where he's going and say this was a very solid debut one-on-one match against Berto. I was a little surprised that it wasn't almost a complete squash, but Keys did overwhelm quickly enough to end it with a trio of strong moves with a follow-away slam, a running power slam, and then a spine buster to win. I do not like seeing a spine buster as a finisher, so hopefully he gets a few more options there as time progresses, but here is to hoping that he gets some quick momentum to setting him up for something meaningful right after WrestleMania. But could a decisive win in the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal be in the cards right away? And the loser of the week is Io Sky, because just 2 weeks ago I highlighted that Io, in the Stats of the Week section, was winless in singles matches in 2026, and this week things hit rock bottom by taking losses on both shows to Jade Cargill and to Kairi Sane. I was definitely stunned that there was no interference on SmackDown whatsoever, instead opting to put Jade over cleanly with a pump kick and a Jaded. Man, I guess that was a beating that definitely gives Jade some credibility going into Mania, so I guess there is at least some sound logic for that one for your biggest women's match. But her match against Kairi at least gave me some hope for her and Asuka to still be added to the WrestleMania card. But after run-ins by Rhea and Jade and another yanking of the leg by Asuka, that gave Kairi an opening for a quick roll-up, which is a pretty terrible way for Io to lose here. Are we really pushing this match past Mania and to BackLash instead? Well, I suppose now that Io's 0-6 in singles matches in the last 4 months, she hasn't earned that spot. And finally, the stats of the week with Rusev and JD McDonough, but if you have to earn a spot, sure, I guess Rusev and McDonough earned one of them with their huge victories on Main Event a couple weeks ago. But since we don't count Main Event here, their loss to Evans and Lee in their tag match means that both of them will be going into WrestleMania with a combined losing streak of 9 matches on Raw or SmackDown, as McDonough's last win was in October and Rusev's was in November. Unbelievably, McDonough is getting rewarded with a WrestleMania match, despite this match being his first one in 2026, while this was just Rusev's 3rd match of the year. Now this outcome is almost incomprehensible when you compare that to our Loser of the Week, Io's main roster leading, well, tied with Rhea at least, 14 televised matches, including having a tag title reign already this year and then being left off of this WrestleMania card, or of course, Carmelo Hayes' 12 televised matches and his incredible US title reign. I'd love to say that it makes sense, but the stats just don't lie. And I did not beat the 10 count yet again, and I'd be lying to you if I said I'd beaten the 10 count in the last few months myself, but I can tell you who the 10 biggest WrestleMania 42 snubs are, so be sure to go right on over here and check that out. And you can probably guess that Io and Carmelo made that list. But until next time, I'm the SportsZu, and this has been Stop the 10 Count.